Welcome. My name is Rick Adams, and I'm going to introduce myself in just a moment. But first, let me just let you know that I'm joined today by two other guests. Marcos Garcia Villas-Boas, who is Director for Customer Experience for Cisco in their LATAM region, and also by Alex Borg, who is the Regional Lead for Customer Success Management in Cisco's EMEA region. And I'll get them to introduce themselves in just one moment also. But first, let me give you a few questions that we hope to answer over the course of the next hour together. So how does a $20 billion per annum turnover tech giant like Cisco completely revolutionize its approach to customer lifecycle management and customer success management? How does that company drive that approach, not just through its own multiple thousand employee organization, but also on through its extensive channel of distributors, resellers, and vendor partners? And once the program is up and running, how do they scale it to incorporate more and more of their extensive and diverse portfolio, and also make it relevant and beneficial, of course, to as many of their end customers as possible? And finally, what might that experience of creating a whole new customer outcomes-led focus to customer lifecycle management that Cisco have gone through teach us and teach your company about what you need to do, and perhaps also what pitfalls to avoid? So I just want to briefly overview the timings for the course. We've got an hour together. Obviously, we'll introduce ourselves. I'll introduce myself. I'll ask Marcos and Alex to introduce themselves as well. Then we will talk about Cisco's drivers for change for a few moments before we then move on to the process of change, how they underwent change. We'll talk about the Cisco customer lifecycle today as it is now. And we'll talk about the role of Cisco's partners in that life cycle. And we will finish, of course, with a discussion about what the future has in store. And then we'll take questions and answers at the end. And you're very, very welcome, as Khosrow said, to submit your questions at any time, but we'll pick them up at the end and we'll have some time free specifically available for those. So that's the order that we'll be doing things in. So let me start just very briefly introducing myself. My name is Rick Adams. I'm the CEO and the founder of a company called practicalcsm.com, which focuses on customer success management, training, certification, and continuing professional development. I'm also the author of the Practical CSM framework and a book called Practical Customer Success Management, available at all good bookstores. And I have had, if you like, an on-off relationship with technology throughout all my working life. Started off as a systems engineer. I often joke, if you want a Windows NT server installation, I'm the guy. And what I found quite rapidly is that my particular interests lay in the business aspects of technology. And I moved throughout my career more and more in that direction. I won't give you the whole career history, but suffice it to say, I ended up as the director of a software company that floated on the UK Stock Exchange, the London Stock Exchange. I then cashed in my shares and formed my own software as a service company. Obviously, that was a massive and profound experience for me. I sold that company in 2006, and I focused then helping my a very good friend with his Cisco training company. And I ended up with a very close relationship with Cisco, helping them as a red badge, which I think probably everybody on this call understands. People in my world might not, but basically meaning I can get into any building and help myself to the coffee at any stage throughout, should I wish to do so, 2 a.m. in San Francisco or wherever I happen to be. And I went around the world helping Cisco with its business transformation program between 2006 and 2018, culminating really with the customer success management piece. And I helped Cisco to put together their customer success management certification, as indeed their certifications for solution architects, systems engineers, sales specialists, partner account managers, and you name it. So anyway, that's me. What I'd like to do is, I just very briefly would like, if Marcos and Alex were willing to do so, get them to introduce themselves. Whilst you're doing the poll, if you're still doing the poll, we'll close the poll after that, and then we'll kick off with discussion 1. But let's first of all just, if I could turn perhaps to Marcos first of all, and ask you if you wouldn't mind just explaining who you are, what your career has been up until now, Marcos, in a few words, if that's possible.
Well, Rick, thank you. Thank you for this introduction, for having me and having organized this. I'm just thrilled to speak with this audience worldwide from East Coast to Europe. Well, I have 30 years in this market, and I have also installed Windows NT servers. Which I don't know if I would really mention it. I think you were courageous mentioning it. Maybe today it's not it's too much information. And I have worked many years in Europe, many years in Latin America, and 4 years in the US. So I've done cross companies. Also French companies like Sagem and Nokia, American company, Sienna, Nortel, lately Juniper. And if you ask me why am I in Cisco right now, it's very clear for me. When I started understanding what those guys were doing, what we are doing, transforming the industry, I said I want to be part of that. So I'm now 18 months in the company, extremely happy and extremely enthusiastic and thrilled of what we are doing right now. I think we're having fun, excitement, and results on a daily basis, and I think it's just great. I hope that we transmit what we are doing right now to this audience through this hour we will spend together.
Absolutely, Marcos. I completely agree with you. It's the energy and the enthusiasm that enables us to create this sort of experience for everybody, which I think is so powerful for ourselves and for everybody else. Great to have you with us. And Alex, if you don't mind, also just introducing yourself.
Thank you, Rick, and I wanted to thank you for all the contributions you do to the customer success space. Your podcast, your material, always spot on. Thank you so much for that. Always helps, us to get, thinking about what's the next question. From my side, I'm on the customer success management team at Cisco, running helping run the program that we work together with Marcos and a very extensive team. Very excited to join Cisco at this time of transformation. I spent most of my career in sales and sales management, but been in business development. Started at the partner, and even before that, right after school, at the customer on their data center. And I always wanted to see, always had a passion for customer success, especially in sales. You get in touch with the customer and you move on, but when you get back, are they really using, what we sold them, to the real extent? What is it going on? Because you don't get to be there as frequent as you would like. And you get to see your customer from time to time. And being in this place, with that sales experience is kind of like now you can connect both things and say, okay, this is it. This is where we can make like a massive impact. And then at the same time, get to see if the customer is achieving their priorities, which these days, they're like so much complex than they used to be a while ago.
Thank you very much. And I think it's great, actually, that what we've got some experience that's quite diverse between the three of us in terms of the directions that we've traveled in and come from, but also where Marcos is LATAM and where you are EMEA, that is also, I think, quite valuable as well. And where Marcos is customer experience and you are customer success. I think that's great. So we've got quite a diverse and wide breadth and depth of understanding here. So great to have you both with us. And just to say, last 2 minutes for the poll, and then I think that poll will get closed down. So if you want to do the poll, guys, please do it now. And we're going to move on whilst you're doing that to our first part of the discussion, which is about Cisco's drivers for change. So what I want to do, and I know you weren't necessarily with Cisco at the time, but if we all think back to, say, 10 years ago, where we were in the technology industry and perhaps Cisco as well, around that time and prior to that, in terms of customer lifecycle management, I think was very different. So what was Cisco doing at the time? What was the rest of the world up to? What was the backdrop for the type of change that Cisco was experiencing? Any thoughts from either of you around that, Marcos and
Rick, I think your vision and your question, which we have to answer, how do you move a $20,000 billion cruiser in the industry is the one to answer. And I have competed a lot against Cisco. One of the things that I know is that Cisco has had a very successful execution model for many, many years in a way that was mainly, I have a very good product. I convince my customer. I have a partner that implements it. I have a tremendous training structure so that I tell my customers, train 2, 4, maybe 10 engineers, CCIEs, and then you will be able to handle my technology. And this has been going on for 30 years. And it was transactional. I would say, and then come back in 4 years. And maybe my products would have one version upgrade a year, maybe mainly sold by customer and partner once, twice a year. Okay. Well, this is not where we are today. This is not what's happening today. Now we have a portfolio which is much more complex. And this is all about complexity. Cisco ran a survey last year on CTOs, and really CTO life is not easy today. 81% would say, I am under pressure to deliver. 93% say I have a skill gap. I don't know how to. And 60% would have this tremendous struggling with complexity response. I don't know where I am. On top of that, I would, this is not the survey, is all those guys have CFOs reading about the amazing cost reductions the new environments bring. We have AWS, Azure, but what this means, and I think this, and that explains what we are doing, is dealing, first we have to understand the complexity. Complexity is, I used to have my on-prem network. And if I had an issue, I would go to second floor and see what's happening. Now it's on-prem, it is cloud, it's public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud. And by the way, now clouds may be cheaper in daylight and more expensive at night. So maybe I want to from home during the day. So this is a first complexity element. Second complexity element is I have to deal with applications. More than 10% of our customers have over 200 applications. And those 200 applications deal with as many applications in all these environments that we are now discussing. And on top of that, and this is where Lifecycle comes in, those products upgrade not yearly, but monthly, weekly. So this amount of complexity cannot be dealt with the kind of rhythm we used to before.
I think that's very true.
And this is where Maria Martinez comes in. Maria Martinez has third version, first Microsoft, then Salesforce, now Cisco. She comes in with a methodology based on 3 pillars.
Well, let's get to that. I don't want to talk about your solutions. I want to talk about drivers for change at the moment. So let's get to that, Marcos, if that's okay. And let's just focus for the moment on drivers for change. And let's just invite Alex in. So great points, Marcos. Increasing complexity, decreasing in the life cycle of any one product iteration before it needs at least a refresh, if not being completely kicked out and replaced with something else. And I would add to that as well, that also customers' needs changing more rapidly as well. Any thoughts yourself, Alex, in terms of the drivers for change, 10 years ago that Cisco was experiencing?
And one of the key things that, we don't get to talk too much about is customer success as a transformation agent. How it is critical, not only, internally at Cisco, when you start to go from, on-prem to cloud or starting to adapt into the customer, but also transformation agent for customers that these days, they are accelerating their migration into digital. And that's kind of like the vision that starts everything. And of course, as we said, on the title, you have to do it at scale. Otherwise, it won't work. It won't make the impact that it's needed. And it's all about, making that impact. internally, of course, because we know that when you are working with your customer, a company, a buyer, they cannot buy anymore. They rarely can buy the product that fits into what you're doing. It's much more about buying an outcome. And that outcome may be, hey, help me optimize, help me reduce my cost, help me give my team more cycles to do strategic. And that's the transformation we're getting on, especially on a subscription economy, on as a service economy, where you need to be like chop chop right there, executing all the time and ensuring that value is extracted at every single step of that journey.
Okay, that's great, and I absolutely agree with what you said. So we're seeing an increase in complexity. We're seeing an increase in the amount of technology being used, but in the complexity as well as the numbers of different applications. We're seeing that new versions of those products come out far more quickly. We're seeing that customers no longer want the old capital purchase and eke out the value over 10 years model that they used to have, and they want a thank you, we'll rent it off you, and when we finish with it we'll stop using it model that is far more prevalent now. We're seeing the rise of the intelligence in the software, I would argue, which has had a massive impact for Cisco, who perhaps were known for boxes, and the boxes had all the cleverness in them, and now it's not the boxes that have the cleverness in them, the cloud has the cleverness in it, and that I think is a massive change as well. So I think what we're saying is that actually, there was like a whole storm of pressures that Cisco were under, from the technology, from the customers, from the resellers, from every direction. So, all right. So if we're comfortable with that, let's talk about the process of change, and looking at this, both perhaps creating change internally inside Cisco's organization, and also the indirect influence that Cisco has, without a doubt, and wants to have and should have and brings to bear in terms of motivating its partners as well. So who within the organization did Cisco need to bring on board? How did Cisco go about the process of winning hearts and minds, guys?
So first, I would say, in order to drive such a process, you need deep thinking, and there I totally recognize, Maria's magic in what she brought to Cisco. We have three pillars that build what we do. First is a methodology, the racetrack, and I used to call the racetrack a masterpiece. I think it summarizes what I have had after 30 years of handling business development and sales and operations. Second, to execute on this methodology, you need tools. And Cisco is massively investing in tools. And now this is serious AI. This is serious machine learning. And first and foremost, telemetry. I always joke with people, would say, would you go, if a plane had the reliability of an IP network, would you jump on it? Normally people would say, no. This is, we're late in our industry in terms of telemetry. And this is the challenge that Cisco is now embracing. Because we have to be able to have networks as reliable as planes. And this is what we're doing. So telemetry is a driver for AI and for machine learning to bring insights. And then you have a team. We're not using the human sense of it. We have customer success persons, customer success executives for high touch, success program managers that manage programs at a big scale, renewal managers, CSMs, and all the ecosystem bringing on board these capabilities to a new execution model.
So who within the Cisco organization is involved in this change, would you say?
So one thing, Rick, that was the beginning. It's a bit of changing. Cisco has a very, particular implementation of customer success. Customer success stays within the service organization, but the service organization evolved into a customer experience organization. Because it's not just about being able to deliver those services to get things implemented, but it's kind of like making it part of the journey. As you can imagine, Marcos mentioned that racetrack or Lifecycle, the customer journey. The customer journey starts early on, starts when they are defining their needs. So we connect from sales, and from sales, we go with the customer together through that procurement process, implement, and they assure that they get to that optimization that gets them the business outcome they were looking for. Exactly what we're saying. And that involves several teams, that involves many teams. And that's why when you want to do this at scale, you need to have a common model, a common framework that extends, across everybody. So at the beginning, you can imagine some salespeople were saying, I love it, kind of like my early approach. It's like, wow, someone is going to be with my customer while I can be there, assuring that they are, getting the right value. But some were very protective, and it's like, I don't need any help. I know my customer very well. So it takes time to get everybody on board. It takes time and it takes results, and that's what we've seen. Especially with the recent events in the world, how you can not only focus on the priorities, but again, pivot as the priorities changes to be able to help the customer where they need it the most.
Okay, so let me give you an example of an experience I had about 5-6 years ago, I guess now, maybe a little bit longer, with a multinational systems integration company, huge, you know them, and they invited me to their head office to deliver some training to their top teams.